Welcome back to another video here at the Legacy of Westeros. Before we get to our second episode in our podcast series, House of the Empire, this episode based on the Battle of Blackwater, the penultimate episode from Season 2, we need to address a rumor that's out there right now. There are reports that Paddy Considine might have been spotted on set for House of the Dragon Season 2. I don't find any of the places reporting this as very reputable, and that doesn't mean it's not happening. I'm not here to squash it or anything like that. I'm just saying it seems relatively unlikely that even if he is there, that he would be appearing on screen. Obviously, Viserys dies in the first season. Now, there could be flashbacks, but Paddy seemed pretty satisfied with his line of work or his body of work from the first season. And he also mentioned that one of the things that intrigued him about signing up for this is the fact that it was only a one-season commitment and not several seasons. So I know there's some people jumping to some wild speculation already, but I would say maybe tone that down a bit and don't expect a reprisal of Viserys for Paddy Considine in Season 2. However, that leads us to our multiple choice question for this video, and that is, do you, the viewer, want to see Viserys appear in Season 2, even in flashback form? Is it yes? Is it no? Or do you just not care? Comment down below. Share your thoughts there. As much as I loved him in Season 1, he's probably my favorite character arc in Season 1. I don't see the fit for him in Season 2 unless you're going to do... Like, I wouldn't want it to be a cameo. It would have to be like a full-on flashback episode of a time we haven't seen yet. And I'm not saying that's impossible, but from what I understand, it's unlikely and not planned. And now, on to the second episode of House of the Empire. Please take a moment, like the stream, comment down below, share your thoughts there, share the channel around with other people that like Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, and anything Westeros related. Enjoy.
Do you know what legacy means?
It's what you pass down to your children and your children's children. It's what remains of you when you're gone.
Hey everybody, welcome to the second episode of House of the Empire here on the Legacy of Westeros. I'm Zach and I'm sounding a little rough this episode because I've been battling allergies off and on for the past 4 or 5 days. I thought my voice was back to where it needed to be, but apparently I still got some work to do. So this will be a really interesting episode for those reasons, but also because we're getting to have a little bit of a throwback on this episode, where we get to look back at the Battle of Blackwater Bay. Shawn is here with me to talk about what is possibly one of the most influential episodes of the entire Game of Thrones series. Up until this point, a lot of scenes and a lot of episodes had felt very low to mid-budget, but by the time you get to the penultimate of Season 2, you can tell that that's where a lot of the budget had been dedicated to. And there were some really significant moments for different character arcs, as well as important fight sequences that helped make Game of Thrones stand out among some other medieval movies and TV shows, and gave it kind of a signature moment that set it on the track that we now have today.
Yeah, I mean, there are not just stories, but factual events that explain their whole plan for Season 2, their whole budget for Season 2 was based around the Blackwater episode. They went and looked at how much that was going to cost them to do, told HBO they needed a little bit more money, and they obliged to an extent. I don't think they got exactly everything they wanted.
Probably not.
And then, lo and behold, the whole season builds towards this event. Like, I would say there's other Game of Thrones seasons that we start at the beginning of the season. They're leading us to a big event, but that event doesn't happen for a few seasons. The Blackwater event is season 2. Like that is season 2 in my opinion.
Right. Right. No, I mean, I would say something like the Battle of Hardhome was like that for season 5, but there's very few that are quite as powerful or influential, because you see stuff in early season 2 where Cersei learns what wildfire is and how it's been produced, and you see Tyrion play the game pretty well when he makes it to King's Landing in early season 2. You see the building of Stannis's forces and the conflict with Renly, and you learn about Davos in season 2. You have Bronn still following Tyrion around, becoming the captain of the Gold Cloaks. So, like, all of these characters have been growing and developing and getting little tidbits put together here and there, here and there, here and there. And then it all culminates. It all comes to a head. It all comes together in this ninth episode of season 2. And I think it's just fantastic because you get all of these great actors, these great actresses that are all putting on signature performances. Oh, are you out of focus? I thought I was just high or sick or something. I was like, oh man, that kind of freaked me out. But yeah, I'm glad you're good. Um I just I really, really love what this episode carries, not just from an action point of view, but a storytelling point of view. It hits all the right notes for me, and it's why this was the episode that I introduced my dad to when I was talking about introducing him to Game of Thrones. I actually started with this episode, and I knew that it was going to be action packed and character driven enough and cinematic enough to draw him in, and it was, and it convinced him to go all the way back to the pilot and then get caught up, and he got to enjoy watching it a second time again when he made it to that point in season 2, and he was like, "Oh, man, a lot of this makes sense now. It makes so much more sense now." So, I think that's the other thing I really enjoy about this particular episode is I feel like this is the episode you introduce people to the show with. I think it stands strongly enough on its own, but I also think that it provides really great context when you've been watching it since the beginning.
Yeah, I would say if you don't start with this episode and you somehow get through the first season and you get past Ned's death and you're still going, I don't know what there is in this show to hook me. If you can get all the way to the penultimate episode of season 2 and get through it and still say that, then the show is clearly not for you. Because I got to tell you,
Yeah.
I didn't watch this episode first. I watched the series in order, not when it first came out either. That's a few years behind, and I Blackwater just changed it for me, man. Blackwater was kind of like my, not to drag us back into Star Wars, but like it was that Star Wars moment for me. It was like, oh, this show can be that too. Oh, well, then that changes everything, especially because you're not getting it every episode. So when it does happen, it's usually just fantastic.
Well, I think the other thing that it does really, really well, and we've alluded to this a little bit already, is the ability that it has to transition from one part of the story to another and have it be just as important as what you just watched. There is no down sequence from Joffrey going off to battle and saying goodbye to Sansa, from Sansa going up to the tower and being mocked by a drunk Cersei, to Tyrion leading troops into battle, to Bronn firing the wildfire into the bay. Every scene has something, and it can be action based, it can be storytelling based, it can be the script, it can be the explosions, it can be the production, the set value, whatever you want to call it. It can be any one of those things on any given scene. And so for it to be that versatile in such a short amount of time is a feat of production and storytelling.
So follow me on this one for a little bit. Season 1, we spend time with the Hound. Decent amount of time. You get the idea that maybe the dude has a little bit of a conscience when it came to Sansa. Sansa was gonna push Joffrey, and he seen it, and he stopped her, and like it's his job, but at the same time, it was kind of like, I'm saving you too. Like you don't get it, but I am. And then we get to season 2, and there's more of him being a total dick and killing people left and right and not having much care. But there's the soft spot for Sansa again, that happens multiple times during season 2. So we get like, just other than the soft spot for Sansa, this guy is, probably not someone you want your favorite character to have to go up against in a fight. And then we go back to season 1, and Bronn's the guy that saves Tyrion, and we follow Bronn and Tyrion, and they get into the battle that intended to be filmed but wasn't, and we skip past it. And then Bronn and Tyrion's adventures, if you will, in season 2, the playing the game is, to me, what takes their relationship and those two characters off to new heights. Season 1 is impressive for both characters. Season 2's, you strap a rocket ship to their ass and they go. But then you get that moment in that episode as Blackwater's about to happen, where it's like, oh, Bronn and the Hound are totally going to go here. One of these fuckers is going to die before they're, supposed to be doing what they're supposed to be doing, defending the kingdom. And it doesn't happen. But it's one of those like great teases for 2 seasons. And we see them, snip at one another a bit in season 2. Bronn sort of snips at all the Kingsguard during season 2. But he, I don't know. It's like pay-per-view, man. It's like the lead up to a boxing match or an MMA match or a wrestling pay-per-view. And then it doesn't happen. And you're like, oh, okay, well, it doesn't happen. At least they're not going to die. But then Blackwater happens. And it's like,
Right.
I don't know many other shows where you can say, and just taking those 2 characters who are not main characters in the show, and like just to be able to do that with an episode is
It was it was like a prelude almost. Like, yeah, they're fighting for the same king, but they're not fighting for the same reasons. And so there's still the opportunity for them to fight with each other. And that was another storytelling element that I thought was really cool was, you know, Sansa is getting to know her new life in King's Landing and trying to find out who her friends are and who her friends aren't. And she starts learning the ways of the world a little bit. And some of the ways of the world are, maybe you don't have the same motivation that I do for this job, which is what we see with Braun and the Hound. But then we also see um her character up there with the maidens and the other ladies, and you can tell she obviously doesn't fit in. She does not belong with the weeping and crying crowd. She does not really belong with the cowering and whimpering crowd. She doesn't belong with the confident crowd either, though, that's just sitting there either thinking we're either going to be saved or we're going to be raped, which is what Cersei is basically preparing herself for. And I think that's really great for her character, for Sansa's character as well, is this idea of coming to understand what royalty looks like and what leadership looks like. And she becomes the queen in the north by the end of the series. So I really feel like this is one of the foundation bricks for the development of her character as well, in the sense that she learns where she belongs and where she doesn't belong, and it helps mold and shape her into the woman we see her become seasons later. So you get great character foundational development in an action episode, which is something that you really don't see all that often.
Yeah, I think it harkens back to that line in it's either season I think it's season 7 in Game of Thrones. It might be season 8, but I think it's 7. And John says to Sansa something along the lines of, "It's like you almost respect her." And Sansa basically says she does in a way, and learned a great deal from her. And like you think back to that night, and then you compare it to the long night, completely different,
Yeah,
monsters heading at you. But like there are, people can shit all over Game of Thrones season 8 if you want. That's fine. Your prerogative to do so. But like there are parallels that go all the way back to season 2 and season 8, and I think that's one of them as well. And like to me, visual spectacle is a big thing. Star Wars
sure,
has it, Lord of the Rings
sure.
has it, horror movies have it, and for the most part, good ones. In that moment where Braun fires up the arrow and it hits the wildfire, man, like just chef's kiss.
To me, the closest equivalent I have to this episode is the Battle of Helm's Deep. And you have a similar explosion that takes place there where basically the first explosive of Middle Earth sets off a chain of events that goes in favor of the bad guys. And that's more or less what happens when the wildfire goes off. I don't think that much wildfire had ever been used in that type of concentration for strategic battle purposes before. Like Stannis wasn't expecting it. Nobody was expecting it. It was a completely unorthodox and almost savage thing to do, but it most assuredly gave them an advantage that almost helped them win right off the bat. I found it fascinating the way that Stannis's troops continued to persevere and continue to push and continue to take advantage because I've been reading on the different Wikipedia pages and stuff that there were probably less than 6,000 troops in total when you're counting the gold cloaks, the men at arms, the knights, the hired hands, whatever it was. It was probably hovering around 6,000 troops that were defending King's Landing for whatever purpose. And Stannis, I think, had anywhere from 5 to 10 times that much. And so even when you take a loss like that in the Bay, you still have a significant troop advantage that he pushes on characters like Tyrion, who are not used to a warlike environment. They're not used to being in the battle because Tyrion's only other battle experience, he got knocked out before he even led his vanguard into battle. So he really doesn't have a whole lot of battle experience, but he still finds a way to motivate his troops when Joffrey cannot. And it's just a continuation of their season 1 dynamic where Tyrion understands what's expected of him and he understands what's expected of Joffrey, but Joffrey doesn't really know how to behave. He doesn't know how to lead. He doesn't know what's expected of him or how to do it. And it's fascinating to watch a king cower away and see somebody who's not very kingly step up in the heat of the moment. Again, great character components that are added to the layers of the spectacle that you were talking about.
Which is vital. I mean, I think Game of Thrones does a fantastic job in their big battles of giving us those character moments that make us engaged with what we're seeing on screen even more. It's not just like, hey, there's a lot of hey, Bob, Joe, Billy, and Craig just got burnt on fire, and I only met them one time ever, and but in terms of the integral characters, they do a good job of showing what they're dealing with. I mean, we see Stannis, head on leading the charge at some point during that battle. We see the Hound in his moment where, he tells Joffrey to fuck himself, and
Yep.
uh, and like that's such an awesome moment.
Well, and the way that it harkens back to his childhood fear, because we hear the story from Littlefinger about how the Hound was burned by fire, and now there's fire increasing all around him, and to see that moment of terror on the face of somebody who has been a stalwart of toughness was really really interesting to see. But I think one of the most interesting scenes to see is towards the end of the episode when you see Cersei and Tommen on the throne talking about the mother lion and her cub, and you see her getting ready to feed him milk of the poppy at a very very poisonous amount. She is ready to let her legacy die with her before it gets given over to somebody else. And I think that's an extreme that really only Game of Thrones could pull off. I don't think Lord of the Rings would have been very well received if we saw the king of Rohan, Theoden, try to kill his niece or somebody else that is close to him so that you don't fall victim to Sauron's onslaughts. I know it's not the best equivalency, but it's just one of those types of storytelling components that are so heavily incorporated into the action. The fighting that's going on outside, Tyrion being knocked unconscious, the hoof beats that you hear just outside the door before you see who it is that comes through into the court. It could be anybody. And to have all of that culminating and her number one thought being, I won't let them take you. It's just it's so drastically different. And it's a direction that hardly anybody had ever taken before. And I loved the risk, and I loved the way it played out.
I was about to ask you what your favorite scene is in the episode, but you just mentioned mine. So, and it's
Yeah,
that
I
one.
mean,
So deep.
that's up there, and basically anything between Cersei and Sansa. I love the fighting, but the fighting is kind of a given in an episode like this. I think it's the down moments and the pacing that really seals this episode for me. It's not just like an hour of nonstop action. There's talking, there's conversations, there's story, there's development, there's behind the scenes stuff, there's under the table stuff. And so those types of conversations that go on intermingled with the battle, I think is the stuff that I really enjoy. So that throne room scene with Cersei and Tommen, and then the scenes up in the tower with Cersei and Sansa. I think Cersei kind of steals the episode for me.
Yeah, I mean they're fantastic. That episode, or sorry, the scene at the end where Tywin comes in, like it's just so powerful from so many different ways. It's my favorite scene. You get to hear about this character for 2 seasons, and you get, his son's perspective on him, both of them, his daughter's perspective on him. We see the relationship with Arya, and there he is, the guy, apparently against all odds, marching in at the end, and got it done. Like, if you ever wanted to like boost the guy's ego, if you will, or honor even anymore, um, that was no better way than that. Like, imagine being Cersei in that moment and everything other than him finding out about them, everything that he's basically set out to do, he's done, and then he
Right.
does that too. Like,
Songs will be written of victories like this. And for him to rally Loras Tyrell to his cause and come in on horseback into the throne room, it's a big moment. It's a big deal. And I think you really see the pride and the smug on his face in the next episode when Joffrey hails him as the savior of the city and reinstates him as hand of the king. He puts it on and he's like, "Thank you, Your Grace." But you can tell like the smugness on his face as he reassumes that post. Like in this episode, he's happy that he's won but I think in the next episode he's happy that he was right. You're muted, dude. You're muted. You're muted.
There's winning, and then there's being right. And Tywin, more often than not, definitely preferred to be right. Anyways, I'll let Zach do the outro at the end. He has a punchline for House of the Empire, but you can check out all of his stuff that he has got going on at Zach the Voice. I believe he also has a podcast he does. No? Yes? No? No?
I'm just talking about the irony that you're calling me Zach the Voice, but I'm not using my voice to say it.
I thought you were
It's
saying
one of
no.
it's one of those days, dude. But yeah, I am at Zach the Voice, and I'm going to be using my voice to do radio broadcasting stuff for a local soccer club. The baseball season just concluded not too long ago. And then, yeah, there's different podcasts and projects going on here and there. IPC is still kind of a monthly thing. There's still stuff going on this channel, obviously. So yeah, just follow at Zach the Voice to find out what's going to be happening next. But I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to what this summer holds and what we've got in store for this channel. So don't miss anything. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Check us out over on the channel. Check us out at Fandom Empire. Check us out at the Patreon. All that good stuff, because we've got bonus content. We go beyond the wall. You can become a fandom fanatic and get exclusive access to all kinds of stuff that's not just Game of Thrones, but Game of Thrones is included. So becoming a financial contributor gets you to a lot of really cool perks, but hitting that subscribe button gives you the perks of being one of the first people to know when a new video of ours drops here on the channel. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll hopefully see you all real soon. But Shawn, unless you got any other final thoughts, I think this is it.
No, man. I didn't even mean for you to do the outro there like that. But
I'm gonna do my thing. I had to clear my throat, but I'm good.
you say
That's gonna do it for this episode of House of the Empire. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time when the Empire returns.
Do you know what legacy means?
It's what you pass down to your children and your children's children. It's what remains of you when you're gone.